if you can go ahead and introduce yourself, and then you can go ahead and tell me about your current employer and your current role.
Sure, happy to. I'm Rowan Bost. I am currently a government affairs director at Steptoe and Johnson, which is a law firm based in DC. Um, and I've been at Steptoe for the last 2 years, graduated from Holy Cross in 2016, and happy to dive more into the role and the employer.
Can you tell me a bit about what you do in your current role?
Sure. So, in my current role, I am one of many professionals within our government affairs and public policy group called the GAP Group at Steptoe here in DC. And my role in that practice group is to advocate on clients' behalf before federal officials, whether that's in Congress or within the executive branch on issues of importance to our clients. So this includes tracking legislative and regulatory developments for clients, providing strategic advice on issues that matter to them, and playing a key role in helping them execute their advocacy strategy through engagement with Capitol Hill and with the executive branch.
That sounds great. So what are some skills that are necessary to be successful in this field?
I would say definitely it's helpful to have a strong understanding of the legislative and regulatory processes, how a bill becomes a law, but also all of the intricacies within um, Congress, the federal government, and how the decision-making process works. I think having a solid understanding of that can come from internship experiences, working on the Hill, um, or other related positions. For instance, I interned at a think tank during my time at Holy Cross that was really focused on federal policymaking. So sort of having a strong understanding of those processes and how to help clients navigate those processes to get their goals accomplished is key. But also, I would say it's important to have a strong network and interpersonal skills. And that's not something that, people get overnight, but I think having some experience in the field and building up contacts and just getting to know as many people as possible is really helpful when it comes to being able to achieve wins for your clients. And then I would also say skills that I've noticed bring a lot of success for interns and people that I help oversee is just openness to working on new policy areas and issues, and just openness to learning a lot of new things, and openness to new projects.
Thank you. And do you know if there's anything students can be doing now to prepare them for this field, such as clubs, organization, classes, experiences that would make them a better candidate? I know you mentioned internships briefly.
Yeah, I would say that while a major in political science is probably going to be helpful in as far as understanding the legislative process, I don't think it's necessary. I was a psychology major and a philosophy minor at Holy Cross. I did do the DC semester while I was at Holy Cross, and I found that to be very helpful in terms of, starting the process of understanding how DC works and getting my foot in the door. Um, but, there's no one path that can lead you to a career in government affairs. I think certainly things that were helpful to me were the DC semester and an internship at a think tank. I was also a Senate page in high school, which if you're in college, you're beyond that. But I will say, having started my time in DC post grad as an intern working on Capitol Hill, and then slowly working my way up through positions in the Senate was very helpful to getting this role. So I think trying to jump into as many internship opportunities as you can in related fields and policy research. Doesn't have to be just federal at the federal level. It can be, related work that can be applied to the federal level. But I think just trying to have as much experience in this area as possible is always helpful, and definitely highly recommend an internship on Capitol Hill.
Thank you. I know you mentioned working your way up in Capitol Hill. Could you share with us any experiences that you have working up? I know it's mentioned that you've worked with a senator before as a legislative aide. Do you mind telling us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I started as an intern um, the fall after I graduated in 2016 in the Senate, and was, I think a lot of Senate offices really like to hire from the internship programs in their offices, um, so that they can sort of vet candidates and train them through the internship programs. And then as they gain that experience, I think offices feel more comfortable promoting them to full-time positions as legislative correspondents, which on the Hill essentially means that you are taking constituent meetings, writing mail, and helping on the legislative portfolio for several issues. And then you're under the direction of legislative aides, legislative assistants. And then slowly, as you gain experience as a legislative correspondent, you can move up as a legislative aide or legislative assistant. There are other paths that you can take. You can go into the communications field on the Hill. You can also be a scheduler, which is a very cool experience because you kind of get the behind the scenes look at the senator or representative's schedule and what they're doing day to day. So there's a lot of different paths that one can take, but I was sort of on the legislative side and moved up through just time and patience and, being willing to work on a lot of different issues.
Thank you. And is there anything else you wish you would have known when you started off in this field?
I would say that one thing that is key that I maybe knew about, but didn't emphasize enough early on in my career was just building a solid network. I obviously, I've been here for 7 years and I've built a network, but I think um, putting more emphasis on that in the early years, it's easy to underestimate how critical those relationships can be later on. So just whether that's the Holy Cross network or people that you meet through your internships or on Capitol Hill, just making sure to stay in touch with those people and really build up a solid network, I think is something that I could have done a better job at when I was early on in my career.
I know you mentioned keeping in touch with people. How would you suggest that students should do that?
I think there's a lot of ways to stay in touch, whether it's connecting with people on LinkedIn, shooting them an email, trying to grab coffee from time to time, and just, letting people know maybe what you're up to, if you've written an article or if you've been involved in some work, wherever you are, and it's something that's worth sharing. I think don't be afraid to do that, but also just I find that it's people appreciate going and grabbing a cup of coffee or grabbing lunch from time to time. I think that's a great way to stay in touch.
Thank you for that. And then do you think there's anything else that's important that we haven't covered yet that students should know about?
No, I think I I would just reemphasize that there's no one path, but as long as you're kind of willing to learn new things. I think there's a lot of ways to be successful in DC, and just a willingness and openness to learning and challenging yourself is critical.
Thank you. And then I know we talked about like internships and stuff. Do you know any specific like clubs that you were in at Holy Cross that you feel like were helpful for your career path?
I would say that the experience that was most helpful in my career path was the DC semester. As far as clubs, I was in the Honors Society for Psychology and for Philosophy, but those didn't directly help me in my career. I would say that the biggest experience at Holy Cross that led to where I am now is the DC semester.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for meeting with us.
Of course. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me. It's been great.